I am Alen Stellian, the Midlife Empowerment Coach, and today I am thrilled to introduce Rayna Neises. Rayna understands the joys and challenges that come from a season of caring. She helped care for both of her parents during their separate battles with Alzheimer's over a 30-year span. That's amazing. She is able to look back on those days now with no regrets, and she wishes the same for everyone caring for aging parents. Rayna is the author of No Regrets, Hope for Your Caregiving Season, an ICF certified coach, the host of a Season of Caring podcast, and a speaker who is passionate about offering encouragement, support, and resources aimed at preventing family caregivers from aimlessly wandering through this important season of life. Rayna lives on a farm in southeast Kansas with her husband, Ron, and a small pack of adorable dogs. I got to see one earlier. Beautiful, beautiful cutie. Rayna, welcome. I've been so looking forward to our conversation.
So much for sharing your audience with me and just having a chance to visit about my passion today.
Yeah, and you really are on a mission. So, so many of us in midlife find ourselves with aging parents who, whether it's Alzheimer's, dementia, or just aging issues, are really confronting a lot of challenges. And as their kids, we are often then put in a position of caring or responsibility. So what kind of help do you think those of us who are caregivers should be looking for our parents?
So I think that one of the most important things is, first of all, knowing that the season is coming and having as many conversations about it as you can with your parents, because it's a hard conversation and we all have a tendency to avoid it. But the more that we broach it and bring it up and talk about, Aunt Sally fell and she had to go to rehab. What would happen, Mom, if that happened to you? What would you want to do? Or where do you see yourself aging? Just starting to have those conversations, I think, is so important. But also for yourself to realize this is happening, and to know that watching your parent age, it's completely normal to be sad, to have grief around that, because your parents have known you your whole life and you've never known them in a place where they can't be independent and they can't be able to just take care of themselves. So that shift really is an emotional process that happens, and you have to just really, I think, be aware of it and acknowledge it. I think we have a tendency to kind of ignore it and kind of act like it's not happening, which then ends up causing a lot more emotional strain later.
So, and talk to me a little bit more about your use of the word season. So what does that entail for you, or why choose that word? Why do you refer to it as a season?
I think it's important to understand that it won't be forever. And especially when you're in the midst of it. For me, both of my parents had Alzheimer's, and so our seasons were very different. Though it was the same disease, they affected them differently. I was only 16 years old when my mom was diagnosed, and she lived for 12 years with the disease, and 8 of those 12 years she was nonverbal. So we didn't get to have a normal adult relationship at all. But my dad, he and I were very close. And so after 7 years after my mom's passing, my dad was diagnosed, and he lived 14 years with the disease. But this, even throughout his journey with the disease, he was very independent for a period of time. And then he needed just a little bit of support. And then it got to a point that he really had to have 24/7 care. And that's when my sister and I stepped in, and I actually drove from the farm to my dad's home, 220 miles, stayed with him 3 days a week, and took care of him for 2.5 years every week, and then cut it back to every other week for the last 2 years of his life. So really moving into that season of hands-on, him needing us right there, it was important to realize, okay, yes, there's things I'm missing. There's things that maybe need to be put on hold for a little while, but it's only for a period of time. My dad's not going to be here forever. And I'm so thankful that I took advantage of the time that I had. So I think it really helps us to realize that it's not a forever thing, and that the seasons will come and go, and that's okay. That's the way life is made. That's the way it's supposed to be. But walking them all the way to the end, I think, is a really precious gift.
So I was going to ask you about that because, some might look at that and say, oh my goodness, like you were so saddled with this, what a burden, what a, difficult time for you and how much you gave up. You're framing it very differently from that. Is that part of your message that it doesn't have, it's the way you look at it? What is someone gaining from making those sacrifices in the service of walking their parents through the end?
I think there's so many things, but I love that question because honestly, I was just talking to a friend earlier. I said, it was so surprising to me at my dad's funeral when people used the word sacrifice. Oh my gosh, you girls sacrificed so much. I can't believe what all you did for your dad. Because honestly, I didn't see it that way. I saw that my dad did everything for me as I was growing up and gave me a wonderful life foundation, supported me throughout my life. So I just stepped into helping him. Now, life is full of trade-offs. There are always choices that we're making. And so, yeah, my plate was full. I had a high schooler at home. My husband helped him run the farm, pay the bills. During my season of 4.5 years of traveling to take care of my dad, I became a grandma. There were a lot of things that happened in that period of time. I was teaching half-time whenever I first started traveling, and that's something I let go of. I was also doing coach training, and that's something I embraced. I started my coaching business at the same time as caring for my dad. So to me, I just looked at my plate and said, what are the big things on here? What fits? What leaves margins still? Okay, that doesn't fit anymore. I need to let that go for this season, and I'll pick it up again another time. So I love to do crafts. I love to sew. I didn't get to do those same kinds of things during the season of caring for my dad, but I put other things on my plate. I picked up a crocheting club and started crocheting again. I hadn't done that in years. So I think that it is a lot in perspective. It is a lot of realizing that there is a trade-off. I'm going to take some things off. I'm going to put some things on. There's room. There's only so much room, but I get to decide what there's room for. And by making those choices, that's how I can look back and say, I don't have regrets because I made decisions throughout the season to keep the things that were most important on my plate and to let go of the things that I didn't need at that time. So many times there's resentment, there's guilt, there's all these feelings, but I think it's really comes from not making intentional choices. And so that's what I want to encourage people to do is really think about what's most important and make sure you're living that way.
But is that awareness and perspective that you had in the moment as you were going through it, or does that come later? When did it come for you?
For me, and I know I'm unusual, but I think for me, it was awareness in the moment. And that might be because of the fact that I had already journeyed with my mom. Now, my dad was her primary caregiver and I supported him. But I think because I knew what it was like to lose a parent, I didn't want to waste or to miss time with my dad while he was still here. And so I was very intentional. I think coach training helped. I was being coached regularly and I was really listening to my own heart. And I think that made the difference for me. But my awareness was definitely in the season. In my book, I talk about the second half of the book is just some of those self-care things. And one of them was I took time and wrote a manifesto. And I really paid close attention to my personal manifesto. What was most important for me and how do I live that way? How do I do that every day? And so I think tools like that can really make a difference in this season. And that's part of why I'm so passionate of getting the word out and then offering my own coaching services to support people because it's not easy. And what I find is the majority of the people either give up their whole life and only become a caregiver, and then they have that resentment and anger, which is normal. Right. Because they aren't maintaining their own life and their own passions, or they have a tendency to kind of hand it all off to everybody, to be overwhelmed and just kind of be hands up, not engaged because they just don't know how to do it. I want to encourage people in this season of life to say, I can do both. I can have a life that I love and I can honor my parents. What does that look like for you? It doesn't look the same as my life does, but you can find that balance.
So it's really figuring out your own manifesto, your own way that you're going to journey through this season. And it may not look like yours. And it may involve different kinds of trade-offs or, and also I'm assuming with your sister, like, how did you navigate the, trade-offs with her, and how do you encourage other people to do that with extended family who maybe want to pitch in or maybe don't?
Exactly. And that's one thing that is so difficult. Relationships are always hard, right? But when you put this kind of stressor on a family, all the old stuff comes creeping back, doesn't it? My sister and I weren't really involved much in each other's lives. I mean, we were sisters, but we weren't those that called each other and stayed in touch. She had elementary age kids. I lived far away. So we had a good relationship, but it wasn't a real deep relationship. So walking into the season, I was like, okay, how are we going to do this? Because her idea of what needed to happen and my idea weren't exactly the same. So we kind of had to negotiate that initially. But I think for me, it was saying, hey, this is her experience, and what fits in her life is not going to be the same thing that fits in my life. So it's not about hers looking exactly the same or doing the same or equal burden, as people want to say. It wasn't. She did the bills. She managed the caregiver schedule. She did most of the doctor's appointments because she was just a couple miles from my dad's house. I did the hands-on care 3 days a week, putting him to bed, feeding him, all of those kinds of things. So we just did what worked for us. And we really found that we functioned in our strengths. And one of the things that I talk about in the book too is just realizing it takes a team. And that doesn't mean you have to be related to them. That just means you need to realize that they're all a part of your team. My husband was a part of my team. He wasn't there doing it with me, but he was on the phone every night at 11 o'clock saying, hey, how was your day? And helping talk me off the ledge if I needed it, or offering words of wisdom. The guy who mowed the lawn was a part of our team. We needed him to do his job in order for us to make it all work. So I also created a quiz at caregiving.com. I'm sorry, caringquiz.com. Where you can go in and see what your caring personality is like. Yeah. And I think that's so important to understand who I am and where my strengths lie, and maybe some of the things that I need to do within those strengths, and who other people are and how important they can bring their strengths to the team too. And I think if we really understand we need the full team, then we're more likely to be able to have the life that we want and honor our parents.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about how you work with clients. I mean, somebody comes to you, like who's the client who's going to really benefit from your services?
The majority of my clients are professional women who just are finding themselves maxed out. They're just going, I don't know how to do all of this. That caring for my parent on top of, life was going well, things were working, and now mom's broken her hip, or we have a diagnosis that's changed everything. How do I do this? And so really getting from that maxed out place to being able to succeed in your job, manage your home, and add that care, as well as take care of yourself. That's what our goal is. So we're walking together to really listen to their heart so that they know that they're making the decisions they need to make to look back on it with no regrets. That's what we do. So, and coaching, you know how important it is. It's just having that person that can really hear. And because of my experience, I can direct them to where we need to go, what other resources might you have around you don't even know of. Yeah. Even though I'm not right there in their community, there's a lot of things within the community I can help direct them to.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I mean, I imagine for a lot of people, it's a very lonely experience to have to grapple with your parents' mortality issues there, and there's a lot of childhood stuff that may come up, and it just is a very complicated thing. And then you're dealing with siblings or other siblings. It just can get very murky very quickly, I would think. And so, I mean, in the few instances when I've experienced it with something going on, I'm still very lucky to have both my parents. I've really found, actually, with the four of us, my siblings and I, that we've really rallied and been a great team together. So that gives me hope that as time progresses, that will continue. And we're also all kind of geographically apart. Some are closer to them, some are not. So right. There's just a lot to, to consider in this. So I feel like it would be such a great service to have somebody from who's got a perspective, who's from outside the family, be able to come in and listen and walk with you and provide resources. So that sounds very powerful.
It is so much fun. I love it. I love to be able to help people to really look at their situation and maybe see something they've never seen before, maybe understand that sibling relationship in a different way, just all of those things. It is so important for me. I've learned to say, I want you as a caregiver, which most of us don't even take that name on. Most of us are just daughters that are just doing what needs to be done, right? But you as a caregiver need to be seen. Your needs need to be seen. You need to be acknowledged for all that you're doing. And you need to be cared for. You need to learn to do that for yourself. You need to allow others to do that with you. But on the same side, your parents need the same thing. As they age, they need to be seen. Who they are, what they love needs to be given the opportunity to continue. My dad was 85 years old and had 14 years into dementia, and we still played ping pong. He could play with the best of you. I mean, he had so much fun finding those passions and those loves that they have and allowing them to be seen as a person and honoring who they are as a person all the way to the end, as well as providing the care for them that's competent and conscientious is so important. And so I just love to be able to support people in being able to do that because it is possible. And I think when you're in the middle of it or even starting, it doesn't feel possible. And so helping you to find how to make that possible for you I love to do that.
So what about have you had clients or come across people who have a complicated, maybe not so great relationship with their parents and are now in a position where they really need to, even if they may not want to, kind of step in and help out? And what's your advice for them?
So it's important because both people are important. You and your feelings are important. If you're not safe with this person because they're verbally abusive or physically abusive, then you're not the right person to be meeting their needs. Again, that doesn't mean that you walk away and you don't have any contact. That means that you're smart in how you do that. So you are still engaged and supplying as much as you can support. I always say you are your parents' daughter. You're important to them. No one else can take your place. Someone else can bathe them. Someone else can feed them. Someone else can do those other tasks, but you are the only one who can be the daughter. And so, making sure that you stay engaged as much as possible, that's healthy for both of you. But I do think that most of us as daughters think that it means we have to do everything. And I want to challenge that. No matter what your relationship is, you can't do everything, especially in midlife when you have your own children and you have your career and you have all of these other things in your life. You can't do it all. You have to have support and help. And that's where we come back to building the right team.
And do you feel like you also have encountered sons who need that kind of help? Or are you focused, do you feel like women are mostly your clientele? Or would men also reach out and say, my husband's an only child. And so it's like, sometimes this all you've got. And it's not like the situation's different with a male, right?
Right. And I agree. I think the reason why I speak to daughters more, I was a daughter, and over 65% of caregivers are women. We do find ourselves in that nurturing state. So we have a tendency to step into that. But definitely support groups that I lead, we have men that are right there. They're as passionate about caring for their loved one as the women are. So definitely an opportunity to work with men is there. It's just a matter of feeling like it's easier to speak to the women because I'm there with them. So
well, and I do think most of the time the assumption is that the daughter is going to be, the one to step up, right? She's, that's kind of the way I don't know if it's a society construct is that. So what led you to write a book about this? So now, you're doing all this work and you're experiencing this. And I mean, had you written before? Was writing kind of a thing no, it was just totally new to you?
So I was a life coach, and I specialized in just women in transition, whether it be divorce or new job, career, those same things. And that I loved my job. I loved working with those women in that situation. But honestly, at my dad's funeral, the director of the day stay, which he attended 4 days a week at that point before his passing, came to my sister and I and just, gave us a big hug and just said, "You girls, you need to write a book." And I was like, "Oh, whatever." In fact, my lowest grade has been English. Writing is just not my thing. And I'm like, "Oh, whatever." But after burying my dad and was experiencing that grief and was just talking to people who were in that place and hearing a lot of what you said earlier, their perspective versus my perspective, I just thought, gosh, there is something to share. There is something about how I approach this season that is different, that could help other people. And so I'm a deeply spiritual person. And just as I just kept feeling God say, "This is your new people. These are your people. You need to talk to them. You need to encourage them. You need to offer them what you have." And so that was kind of where the shift happened. And then I found a great team to partner with me. I hired help in coaching, a writing team that worked with me in writing my book. And then was just so blessed to be published by Morgan James. And so it's been a great adventure that I never would have imagined being on. But a year ago, on June 25th, which was my dad, the second anniversary of his passing, I had my contract to write my book, and it came out June 1st. So it's just been amazing.
Days ago, we are so, on trend here. This is great. So what's in the book? Tell us more about what somebody might, what they'll encounter in your book.
Sure. So the first 10 chapters are kind of those things that we learned: medication management, dealing with doctors, hiring, firing caregivers, how to work as a family, how to look at your team, just a lot of those story, but then my takeaway and our application from that experience. And then the last 6 chapters is those self-care tools. How did I do this? How did I maintain life at the same time as honor my dad through the process? So I try to give a balance of that, but a lot of it is just my story and my heart just sharing, you can do this. It is not easy. It is a very difficult season of life. And I think knowing that helps a little bit, and just getting that encouragement through the pathway. So many people have said, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, it sounds like there's you weave in your personal experience throughout.
Yes. Many people's comments have been, it's like sitting with a girlfriend over coffee, that I'm sharing, this is what happened with us, and this is what I learned from it. And then also just the practical tips of just med lists and some downloads and free resources that are available have just been really, again, different, more user-friendly, because they're coming from a lay person, really just sharing what we did and how we did it. So.
Wow. Do you feel like your relationship with your parents, and I guess especially your dad, changed as a result of or deepened, I'm assuming, as a result of your experience in this season of caregiving?
I think it did. I was so young when my mom was diagnosed, and her progression was so different as far as never having that adult to adult relationship with her. And it was funny because as my sister and I were talking about scheduling and how we were going to handle him at home, one of the things I said to her was, "Oh, I don't think I can bathe him." Because I bathed my mom. My mom was never incontinent, so we were kind of on a schedule. Every couple hours we went to the bathroom, but you had to take care of those hygiene things. And I just didn't see myself, because my dad and I were so close, I didn't see myself being able to do that for my dad. And I really wasn't sure what that would look like as he got to the point where he needed more of that. But I was so surprised and blessed in that period of time, because it really wasn't about taking care of the needs. It was about my dad. When he had an accident, it wasn't like I was going to let him sit in it. And right. He couldn't do it for himself. Right. So just stepping into those needs with dignity and helping, it was amazing to be able to do that for him, knowing that he had done that for me whenever I needed it. And so it was, I think back and think, I don't remember the last time he said my name until the week before he died. Within days before his passing, I had been standing by his bedside, and I was just talking to him. Somebody else came up and I kind of stepped back out of the way, and he just popped in. He's like, "Where did Rayna go?" And I thought, oh, he just said my name, and it was wonderful. It really was. And we shared so many memories, new memories that we created together, doing projects around the house, playing ping pong, going to the gym, lifting weights together, things that I would not have had to look back on if I hadn't had to be there in town with him. And that's the thing that proximity, created those things. If I had just been away, I would have visited, but I wouldn't have engaged in the same way. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, living with your father as in his elder years, it sounds like it was such a bonding experience, and you did create just a whole different set of memories with him. I'm curious to know if you, having gone through this with your parents, how does this inform you now as a person who is aging, and your hopes, expectations, planning? I don't know. What does this tell you about how you're going to do it from the other side?
Mm-hmm. It's so funny because everybody you talk to that has an older parent, they all say they're so stubborn. And I always laugh and say, yeah, I will be too. I mean, I think the only reason why we're not stubborn in this season of our lives is because we get to make all our own decisions, right? I mean, other than your boss and the law, there's
Right.
not a whole lot that's dictating what I have to do and what I don't have to do.
You have a lot of control still. Yeah.
We do. And the older we get, the more other people want to control us. And I think that is one of the biggest issues, is how we approach what's happening to our aging parent. But back to me. So I'm in a little different situation. I'm a stepmom. I don't have children of my own. And so my husband and I have that conversation frequently. I love the kids. They love me. I love my grandkids. So I'm very involved in the family, but I also know, gosh, I don't know. There's not a whole lot I can do other than do the best I can. And we communicate what's important to us. Before I married my husband almost 12 years ago, I was like, we will have long-term care insurance on me.
Yeah.
With having both parents with Alzheimer's, I was young at that point. I was like, this is a lot younger than a lot of people are investing in that, but I need that for your security, for the farm, all of those things was important to me. So I think financially, we're making decisions realizing that it's going to be very expensive. People say that, and you don't realize how expensive it is. In-home care, if it were 24/7, is over $144,000 a year.
Wow.
And that was Kansas City, Missouri. So that, not a large, not a coast
Avoid
side,
that. I mean, that's,
Yep.
yeah. Wow.
So when you're looking at, options, obviously residences are cheaper than that, but they're still $8,000 to $10,000, a lot of them. So it just, you got to plan ahead, and you have to understand. And because of where we've walked, I understand that better than others. So I think we've had those conversations, paperwork's in order, that kind of thing. But relationally, I mean, I think you just have to realize relationships important, and how you treat and the respect that you give to your children and their spouses, it's going to come back. And so my prayer is that, we find the best situation that works for our family. And I think that's going to be a part of it, with taking care of my husband and myself too. And we don't know what that's going to look like as far as what kind of health challenges we'll deal with. But I think the conversations have started, and that was important to me, realizing how important it is to talk about it. It's not comfortable. None of us want to age, but we're all going to. So we have to have those conversations.
Yeah, well, I think, your mission is amazing. I just love, what you're doing. And I think it's such a benefit to somebody to be able to have someone walk with you in this journey, who's been through it, and, in a pretty dramatic way in your case with both parents, and who's able to, have those coaching skills too, to be able to really do the deep listening and try to figure out, not do it my way, but what's the best way for you and yours, and what's really going to leave you feeling whole and complete in this journey. So I applaud you for this. It's such a powerful mission, and I thank you for spending time with us today, and and sharing your life's calling and your wonderful new book. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. So no, it's really, really powerful stuff. So I'm sure we could talk forever about this, but I really do appreciate you making the time with us. I will be adding your website and and a link to your book in the comments. And you also have a freebie that you wanted to offer. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
So I think one of the things that is most challenging is when we're just starting off in that season of what in the world do I do? What do I need to know? And so I just made a real simple tip sheet to just kind of talk about some of the things that you're going to need to do and some of the things you might be hearing about that you think aren't as important as others. So I'd love to have you be able to just join in on my email list and get a chance to get that free resource.
Yeah, we'll add the link to the comments as well. And I thank everybody for joining us and watching. A special thanks to Rayna for sharing your wisdom and experience and your mission with us. So everybody, don't forget to check out all the wonderful links we'll be adding. And if you enjoy these videos, please watch for more coming weekly. And until then, be well and stay safe. And thank you again, Rayna.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.